Hey everyone, I am Tim Bursons from Amplify Metabolism, and in today's video, in part 4 of the Gut Microbiome series, we are going to be talking about the digestive fire. We're going to be talking about the top 3 supplements that you can take to increase the digestive fire in your stomach and your small intestine. Now, the digestive fire, what am I talking about, and why is that so important, especially when we're talking about the gut microbiome? Well, the reason is because whenever you're eating food, your ability to essentially assimilate it and to incinerate it and assimilate it before it reaches to your large intestine determines what actually makes it down there. So if you can imagine a situation where you have a super strong incinerator-like stomach and small intestine where everything that you eat just gets completely broken down and completely absorbed, well, now what would make it down into your large intestine? Well, the only thing that would make it is what is not digestible, which is fiber. And fiber is what feeds the good bacteria. Now let's contrast that. Let's say that, for example, you have very poor digestive fire. You're completely watery, no digestion, no fire, no incineration. It's just very, very mellow and unproductive. So now you eat this food, doesn't get broken down into its constituent parts, therefore does not get assimilated and absorbed by your small intestine. And therefore, you're getting these large chunks of material from different carbohydrates and starches, different sugars, different fats, and different proteins that haven't been broken down, making their way all the way down into your large intestine. Well, now those bacteria are going to be digesting those nutrients instead of the fiber. Now, which bacteria are those going to be? Those are going to be the ones that are producing the negative byproducts that you don't want. Specifically, when we're looking at things like protein reaching your large intestine, those bacteria are going to break it down into ammonia and dump ammonia into your bloodstream. And we talked in the first video about the person who had infected themselves with yeast, and therefore whenever the carbohydrates got to the large intestine would produce alcohol and get them drunk. Then we talked about how lactic acid producing bacteria can produce lactic acid and make it feel like you were fatigued from a workout every time you ate. Well, ammonia is the byproduct of protein breakdown, and that happens during exercise as well, and it's one of the molecules that helps facilitate fatigue within the body. And so if protein is reaching the gut microbiome and it's breaking it down and creating ammonia, now your liver is going to be bogged down, and now it's going to be producing less of the bile acid, less of the hydrochloric acid that you need to digest, so that next time you eat, now you're going to be bogged down again, and then more is going to reach it. So it's this self-sustaining cycle where once you start to slip down this slope, once you start to get poor digestion that results in the gut microbiome digesting food is not supposed to, leaking into your bloodstream, and then now causing even more poor digestion, it's this cycle that keeps going. So what we really want to do is restore that digestive fire so that anything you're eating is getting completely broken down and absorbed to the most ability that it possibly can. So with that, we have 3 supplements that can help with this. The first supplement you can take to increase your digestive fire is Betaine HCL. Betaine HCL is basically a molecule bound to hydrochloric acid, betaine being one of the protein molecules that your liver can use, and especially betaine can be converted to choline, which helps your liver export fat, so betaine on its own is a very good molecule. But the HCL component is what we're really looking at when we're talking about digestive fire, because the stomach's pH is so important for breaking down those nutrients, especially when we're looking at protein. Now, when you eat protein, normally in a healthy person, your stomach's going to be producing a lot of hydrochloric acid. This hydrochloric acid is going to break down and denature the protein so that it can be broken down into those individual amino acids, which can then cross the gut barrier into the blood and be used as it's supposed to. In too many people, we see low stomach acid, which basically means that their stomach acid is not able to reach that low point. And now a lot of people actually have acid reflux because of this. Now that's actually a really big confusion point for a lot of people, because they think that whenever you have acid reflux, it's because there's too much stomach acid. But really what's happening is that the sphincter, the esophageal sphincter that closes from your stomach up into your throat, is becoming weakened because it's holding on for too long. So when you eat the food in a normal person, you would be able to create that low pH, get it down to that 2 pH reading, very, very low pH, very, very acidic, breaking down all the proteins. and be able to pass it along relatively quickly. Now, in a person with low stomach acid, they're going to be the food's going to be sitting there, and it's not going to be moving on because the stomach acid is lowering the pH too slowly. And so all that food is sitting there for a much longer time, pushing against that esophageal sphincter, and therefore the pH of 3 or 4 is leaking up into your esophagus and burning it. Now, if it were actually just to get low quickly, then it would be able to move on, and that esophageal sphincter wouldn't need to stay tight for so long. So if you can take Betaine HCL, basically what you're doing is helping to support your stomach's ability to produce hydrochloric acid, lower the pH more quickly so that the food can get digested and move on from your stomach faster. So in the short term, you might actually notice if you have GERD or acid reflux disease that when you take hydrochloric acid, you get a little bit worse of symptoms. However, if you can get past that point, you'll notice that your digestion is actually going to start getting a lot better because you're going to be able to move that food on quicker, and you're not going to be sitting with this food pushing up against your throat for hours and hours on end, causing that heartburn that we normally associate with stomach acid. Now, the second supplement that you can take to increase your digestive fire and improve your gut microbiome is going to be ox bile. We did an entire podcast on this supplement. It's a great supplement for anyone to try. Ox bile is basically the bile acid that you normally produce in supplement form extracted from the ox. Now, bile acid works to emulsify the fat that you eat from food into the watery environment of your stomach so that it can then be absorbed into the bloodstream. You need bile acids, bile salts, bile acids to digest any long-chain fatty acid, which is most of the fatty acids that you eat. If you don't have enough of this bile acid, the fatty acids will then make it to your large intestine and create oily stool, create a host of bacterial cascades that are not healthy for the system. Now, normally your liver produces plenty of bile acid, which is stored in the gallbladder and then released whenever you need it, whenever you're eating that fat. Now, what happens in too many people is that the liver starts to get bogged down and it doesn't really produce as much bile acid, and it doesn't produce as high quality of bile acid. And so then the gallbladder starts to get clogged up and it's starting to release this murkier, thicker, sludgier bile acid that's not as clean, not as pure. And then when that goes to digest the fat, which it does in a much more poor fashion, then that fat makes it to the small intestine, and whatever bile acids get reabsorbed end up going right back into the gallbladder. So you can think of this like getting an oil change. Your car recycles that same oil over and over again, but after a while it starts to get really sludgy and really thick, and you need to get an oil change. You need to release all the old oil and put in new oil. Now, bile acid, by taking it exogenously as a supplement, can help as far as replacing with new oil. But to combine with that, you really want to have a high soluble fiber diet, which is what we talked about in the last episode. Soluble fiber will bind the bile acid that gets excreted into your stomach, and it will bind it and take it all the way out of your system, therefore removing the old sludgy bile so that when you're taking the new bile, you are creating a fresh stream of bile acid. Now, of course, normally, if you can have a healthy liver, your liver is going to be producing this for you, and that's really the best way to do it. But if your liver isn't in optimal condition, this is a way that we can kind of short circuit it and kind of ratchet things up a little bit so that now you can at least digest the fats. Those fats can at least have a little bit better of effect to help your liver become a little more healthier. And then over time, you won't need to continue to take the bile acid. And the third and final way to increase your digestive fire is to take digestive enzymes. There are many different products out there that you can use. These are basically lipases, which break down fat, proteases, which break down protein, and amylase, or a couple other different carbohydrate breaking down enzymes. Now, normally your body will produce plenty of enzymes to digest in the healthy state to break down all these foods. These enzymes basically allow the reaction of breaking apart the long strings of molecules into the individual substituent parts so that they can be absorbed. It will make that reaction much more easy. If you're not producing enough of them, then you actually aren't going to be breaking those down and they'll be passing through your system. So taking a supplement that has those digestive enzymes in them can be very helpful for helping those nutrients to be broken apart. However, unlike the other two supplements, this is one that I would use very sparingly, maybe only for a month or 6 weeks or so. The reason is because your body's own enzyme production will start to decrease as you keep taking it exogenously, as your body knows that it doesn't need to create those enzymes anymore. Whereas the stomach acid and the bile acid, those can more quickly adapt as you start to wean off the supplement. That's not to say that the enzymes are not good. Of course, you should take them if they are helping you. It's just to say that that's one that you probably shouldn't take for an extended period of time. So there you have it, the top 3 supplements for increasing the digestive fire. Like I said, you really want to make sure that you're digesting food properly so that all the proteins and carbs and fats aren't making it into the microbiome and causing bacterial overgrowth of the kinds of bacteria that you don't want. If the only thing that's reaching down to the large intestine is the fibers, the insolubles and the soluble fibers, then the good bacteria will be feeding on those and you'll be getting the appropriate effects you want. You'll be creating those short chain fatty acids in your microbiome and having all of those positive health benefits. It's only when you start to get those foods down in there that aren't necessarily supposed to be digested, the full protein molecules, not the individual amino acids, the full starch molecules or the sugars or the full fatty acid chains, and not broken down into the individual components, that start to feed those bacteria and cause those negative side effects. So if your digestive fire is really strong and you're incinerating everything and assimilating everything, then what makes it down into the large intestine will only be what is helpful for your gut microbiome. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We have one more part to this series coming out tomorrow. So if you enjoy this video, make sure you subscribe and so you can keep up with all the updates. I'm going to have a lot more cool videos coming out, so you definitely want to do that. Give me the thumbs up if you like this video, share it with anyone who you think might like it, and comment if you have anything to say. I'd love to continue the discussion there. I also have a Patreon account in the About section of this video. If you want to throw a few bucks my way and you enjoyed this video, it would be much appreciated. Of course, no obligation to do so. With that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope that you are able to digest all of your meals fully with a strong digestive fire, incinerating all that food, assimilating all that food, and having a healthy gut microbiome. Have a good one, guys. Peace.